yesterday we had Eagles mandatory minicamp, a one-day mandatory minicamp, but it was the first time the whole team was together. And let's start with this: perfect attendance yesterday, which is great news. Everyone there, and it's the last.
That's the first start to a good start of a season.
Absolutely, everyone was there practicing yesterday, and this is their last time together before obviously training camp starts in a little over a month here. And here, it's interesting because when a team is as good as the Eagles, coming off a Super Bowl, there is that natural question and natural thought of, can they do it again, and can they have the same both mental ability and physical ability to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And Hugh, every time we've discussed the offseason, I have voiced some of the concerns I have of their ability to be as good again. But all those concerns I have are about the roster, right? Did they lose too much? Milton and Josh and CJ, GJ, and Darius Slay. The one aspect of this team I'm not concerned about at all is a mental hangover after winning the Super Bowl. I think the Eagles are built, and yesterday's perfect attendance kind of added a little bit even more for me. I think they're built to sustain success. I think the Eagles are built to defend a championship mentally. I think they have the right people here, from the coach to the front office to the players, to come back and almost act like they didn't win the Super Bowl. Just go out there and try to do it again. All these players drafted from all these big schools, used to winning, whether it be Jalen Hurts at Alabama or all the Georgia kids. Like, they're used to having a season, going for a championship, winning a lot, and then bouncing back the next year and starting to climb that mountain again. Hugh, I am not at all concerned about a Super Bowl hangover. Where do you come down? Is it inevitable that there is some sort of hangover after the Eagles won the Super Bowl?
I think so. Never won a Super Bowl. Let me throw that out there first for all those that you want to point that out on you people want to point that out. They want to remind me that. I mean, I've never won one, but I had a chance to talk to some people that did. Talked to Nate Newton this weekend, and we were talking about Philadelphia and Dallas and the differences of the two teams and everything. And one of the things that I asked him, because he did win a Super Bowl, is there potential for a hangover? And he said yes. He said, and when we started getting into specific players, and he told me to a man, he was like, I'm not really too much worried about Saquon because his work, he was talking about his work ethic. But everybody's not going to be on the same page. You're going to have some guys, and they might be the fringe players, it might be the peripheral players, that somebody's not going to be locked in. It might be a special teams player that, enjoyed the offseason a little bit too much, partied a little bit hard, didn't work out as much as he needed to work out last year. So there's the potential there to get off to a slow start. Now, when I say hangover, that doesn't mean that you have to stay hungover the whole season. It's potential there to get off to a pretty slow start or a significantly slow start, and you have to fight to get to where you want to be. There's so many examples of things like this happening. The year that the Kansas City Chiefs won it the first year, they got off to a slow start the next year, because the reasoning why that Nate told me is because the time to train is shorter, because your last season was longer. So the time off you have isn't the same. Now you get back to training, the rest isn't the same. All of these intangibles aren't the same. So there is potential there to get off to a slow start.
215-592-9494. We're live at Citizens Bank Park today. The Phillies and the Cubs have their finale of the three-game set coming up later on this afternoon. We're starting with the Eagles off of minicamp, and yesterday, perfect attendance for the team. And then I heard this from Nick Sirianni. And, Nick Sirianni has gone through different waves of the way we feel about him, the way I feel about him, the way he's perceived across the NFL. Here's what he is now, though. He's a Super Bowl champion coach, and he's a guy that's been here now long enough to understand how the off seasons work, how everything works with his team, a veteran group, but a lot of young guys coming up, especially on the defensive side. I think Sirianni's thought process now, after coaching in his second Super Bowl, on how to sustain success was interesting. Here's Sirianni yesterday on trying to sustain what they've built here.
Really, I focused on sustained success, right? What were the common denominators of different coaches that I talked to, or players that I talked to, or Michael Johnson, other sports that that we talked to, that what were the common denominators of sustained success? And I think without getting into everything, I think there's two sides of it. The main thing is it takes what it takes, right? You're going to have to be able to work extremely hard, and you're going to have to be able to overcome adversity. And and you always have to be right in the moment of where you are. I think, as I've done research and talked to these guys, and we've had an element of sustained success here as well. But you can have two ends of it, right? You rest on your laurels, you rest on your past accomplishments, and you're not here working, or you're looking too far ahead of how do we do this again? Like, we're focused on our process and how we get better every single day. And, if your process is right, then it gives you the best chance to win. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, but it gives you the best chance to win.
Well, and I love what I heard there from Sirianni, like kind of what his focus was in the offseason. How do we sustain this now? And I just think they have the right people. Hugh, I understand your point about the schedule and the offseason, and it's shorter. It's shorter for every Super Bowl champion, right? Every team, both teams that make the Super Bowl, the winner and the loser.
And to that, with that being said, there are examples of teams that have repeated
and sustained.
Sustained it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look back the last 20 or so years at what teams did the year after they won the Super Bowl, right? We usually talk about the other side, like the Super Bowl loser thing, and that's been a thing over the years. It is difficult to get back to the Super Bowl after you lose it the year before. But winning it, what do you do then? You're the best team. Can you do it again? I mean, most teams that win the Super Bowl last 20 or so years, double-digit wins, 12, 13 wins, back to the playoffs. It's hard to repeat. We know that. I mean, there's very few Chiefs. There's very few Patriots. It's hard to repeat in the NFL. The Eagles are trying to do that now. I just think they're built for this. I especially like the mentality of some of their players. I watched Devontae Smith. I listened to him talk. I don't even know he's accomplished anything in the NFL by the way he carries himself. Right? Devontae Smith he's a worker. I think
quiet guy.
I think Jalen Hurts has some of that too. Where it's about the grind. Even A.J. Brown. We talked a lot about his Instagram post after the Super Bowl about he loves the grind. He loves the battle more than the results. I think they are built with a lot of guys that just want to play football and dominate, and I don't know how much winning the Super Bowl satisfied them. It makes me feel good about this summer. I feel like they're going to attack this, and they're going to be ready. Now, are they good enough to win 14, 15 games again? I don't know, right? We're going to see that in the fall. But if they fall short or they're not a dominant team again, I think it's more because they just lost a lot of good players. The schedule's tougher. I don't feel like they're going to have a hangover. I'd be surprised week one if we watched the game against the Cowboys and we're like, oh man, they were their heads weren't in the game, or they weren't all there, or they looked a step slow. That would surprise me. I'm not expecting any hangover from the Eagles.
No, I hear what you're saying, but I think that there's potential there, and I always look at it like, like the year Jalen got his money, and I go back to that and I say, well, there's an opportunity there, or potential there, I should say, that he could get off to a slow start, and for the most part, he did. It's just the way that. It could be the way that you practice. It could be the way that you install. There's a lot of intangibles that go into this. I think that the guys will be physically prepared. It's the mental aspect that might take a little bit of time to lock in. Because like I said, these guys' time is different now. They're doing things that they didn't do last year. Like, say, I don't want to mess up the name because if I do, y'all going to exciting white, casual whites.
They're not the casual
whites. Two mics and a white.
I think there's only two mics. Who's the white? They're both white. Exciting mics, Cooper and Reed.
See, and I was trying to make a point.
You have to apologize then we'll see the training camp.
I try to make a point.
At this point, you're going to have to apologize.
But
that was so
the
bad.
Point is,
two mics and a white.
The point is that their time is still different. You're like, it's just different.
Sure.
And the mentality is different. That's the biggest thing that I focus on when I think about this. Okay. Because going into last year, we know Saquon Barkley works his butt off. But last year, mostly Saquon Barkley's why was to prove to people that he was that dude, that he was him.
And he did it.
And he did that.
Right.
So now his focus is to sustain being him. It's almost like, have you ever seen the cartoon Afro Samurai?
I haven't.
Well, Afro Samurai was going around and he was trying to find the number one headband, right?
Okay.
So he was fighting all these other guys. He had to fight him in order to get to the right to be the number one guy, to get the number one headband.
He needed to reach the mountaintop?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. So when he reached the number one guy, he got complacent a little bit, and he lost the headband for a little while. So he had to get back on his grind.
So he lost the eye of the tiger.
Yeah, so he had to get back on his grind to get the number one headband back. It's kind of the same thing.
I understand it. I never.
Yeah, you never seen Afro Samurai?
I'm going to search it right now.
Yeah, because it's really good. It has Samuel Jackson in it, so yeah, it's really good.
When did it come out? Like
about 10 years ago?
Oh, it's not that old.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll check it out. 215-592-9494. Is a Super Bowl hangover for the Eagles inevitable? Hugh thinks it is. I don't. It's like the one thing I don't worry about is their mentality and where their focus is. If this was a young team, and they are young on defense, but if they were a team kind of that came out of nowhere, right? That happens. A team wins a Super Bowl kind of out of nowhere. Let's say Cam Newton's Panthers team, which they were all right, and then they just went 15-1 and got to the Super Bowl. They lost their Super Bowl, but they got there. Then I'd say, are they really built to sustain success? And that particular group I mentioned wasn't. The Eagles are built for this. They're built. They've been very successl since Sirianni got here. Hurts obviously is a winner and has won every step of the way. I'm not worried about a hangover. 215-592-9494 to hop in. Kyle, what are you feeling here as the Eagles have perfect attendance day one of minicamp? You got our guy, Nick Sirianni, talking about studying sustained success. Do you believe that a hangover is inevitable?
Well, I don't believe really in the Super Bowl hangover in general. I think it's kind of a myth. I believe in like regression statistically. I just think if you're at the top, it's probably more than likely that you're going to fall back toward the pack a little bit. And like, I get the Eagles came off of this a couple seasons ago, 2022, going to the Super Bowl, losing, and then coming back. And I mean, I know the team started hot the next year, but ultimately they collapsed and they fell apart. I think that kind of thing is just likely when you have as many changes as you do. And, you know, the fact that they did win the Super Bowl means that some of their players get more highly valued and it becomes harder for you to retain them. But I don't know if that's like that's not a mental thing, right? I just think you end up losing pieces on defense. There's a lot of new young faces for Vic Fangio to have to integrate into the team. And they have a new offensive coordinator, and we've seen, you know, what the quarterback and what the offense, specifically the passing offense, looks like when Jalen Hurts has a new coordinator. So I don't think it's like a mentality thing. I don't worry as much about the mentality as you do. It's just I think some of the symptoms are there, the signs are there for them to, you know, maybe start the season a little bit slow and maybe take a little bit of a step back. Look, they could still end up one of the best teams in the NFC, if not the best. But I don't think it'd be crazy with how tough the schedule is for them to like start the season 3-2 or 2-3. Like I just think that's a likelihood in general, just because, you know, the nature of everything that happened.
215-592-9494 is a Super Bowl hangover inevitable for the Eagles. Minicamp, one-day minicamp in the books.